1 lakh. Okay, 1 lakh.
My extreme apologies for jumping the queue, but I have another session going on. So, what I'm going to talk about is the results of phase 4 trials which have been done for Razumab. No financial disclosures to make, it doesn't mean I'm promoting the product. So, what do we have for the Razumab? So far, we all understand it very well that anti-VEGF is the key to management of many of these VEGF-driven processes, AMD, diabetes, and so on and so forth. Recently, we have this new biosimilars in the market which concerns us, and it has been approved in India in February 2015. But what are our concerns? There are two major concerns which all physicians face, and that is the safety and efficacy. So, this study was a prospective, single arm, multi center study which included 126 patients over a period of 24 weeks. The injections were given. What were the endpoints? The primary endpoint was there any serious side effect, and what were the other adverse events which were noted with biosimilars, and the percentage of the patients who developed anti-ranibizumab antibodies after 6 months of treatment to study the immunogenicity of the drug. And the secondary endpoints, which were equally important, were the efficacy of the drug in terms of improvement in the visual acuity as well as decrease in the central retinal thickness on OCT. So, as I mentioned earlier, either gender, more than 50, only done for AMD patient who had a best corrected vision between 2040 and 2320. The patients who were excluded were the patients who had received any intravitreal drug 3 months before injection, any laser photocoagulation in the past, or had coexisting disease which would affect the visual outcome. The usual, fibrosis, CNVs other than AMD, pigment epithelial tears are the active intraocular inflammation. Safety was assessed both ophthalmic as well as the systemic safety in form of adverse events and serious adverse events, and efficacy in terms of vision and retinal morphology. This is how the results went. So there was enrollment of 149 patients which were screened for various reasons. Some of them were dropped. So 126 patients which actually underwent injections, and then 10 lost to follow-up due to whatever reasons. Just one of these patients died. And then this is the follow-up of 116 patients for which the follow-up was completed. Immunogenic studies were done for all 126. Now, if we look at the baseline characters, they all were as per the inclusion criteria. Now let's look at the safety, because personally this is something I would be concerned about. Total of 19 adverse events were reported, which meant they were 12.7%, and this includes both the ocular and the systemic adverse events. Of these 19, 15 were categorized as mild, 3 were moderate, and only 1 adverse event was severe in nature. All of them resolved except death, and I think they could not resolve it. But this patient who died was the patient who was a known patient of MI and who already had undergone stents and all 6 months prior to enrollment in the study. The casualty assessment for the death was judged, and it was unlikely related to the drug, and there was no other serious adverse events reported. Now, this is the whole lot of minor adverse events which you would see in the table, but the ones is the one patient who died, the ones labeled in the black, which is the anterior uveitis and increased intraocular pressure, anterior uveitis in one patient, and increased IOP in 3 patients. This is what was considered to be related to the drugs, the all others could not be considered directly associated to be with the drug. So no adverse event was suggestive of any immunogenic reaction, because that is something which bothers us all when we are dealing with biologics. Compared to the efficacy, the drug was found to be effective as the current available non-biosimilars anti-VEGF in the market, and these are some of the figures showing that there was statistically significant improvement in the vision on visit 6, which was the last visit, and day 168. Macular thickness again showed a significant decrease compared to the previous visit. On 16th visit, here you can see there is a significant improvement in the thickness from 379 to 259, and again this was found comparable to the non-biosimilar anti-VEGFs. So what were the results of the immunogenicity? Immunogenicity were the samples which were taken right in the beginning. So they have the data for 126 eyes. So of all the 126 patients, 15% patients were confirmed positive for anti-ranibizumab antibodies for at least one time point. And of these that were confirmed, the patients were positive at pre-dose and 7% were positive at post-dose. So almost equal number, because they had taken patients who had received any anti-VEGF 3 months prior to injection. So I don't know what to make out of this, but overall it was concluded that there was no additional safety concern in terms of immunogenicity. So Razumab, which is the biosimilar on which the trial was done, was found to be well tolerated. Adverse events noted in 12.7%. Adverse events comparable to those reported with ranibizumab, and of 126 patients, only one patient was discontinued due to myocardial infarction, which they considered unrelated to study drug. No case of endophthalmitis, vitreous hemorrhage, or non-ocular SAEs, including thromboembolism, was reported. So, to conclude, ranibizumab is well tolerated in wet AMD patients. No new safety events were reported, and overall profile was similar to the standard drugs available in the market. And it showed similar improvement both in terms of visual acuity as well as decrease in the thickness. Thank you so much. And I have no financial disclosure again.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening talk on Razumab and its safety profile.